All right, I'm just doing a sound check right now. I'll talk a little bit about the book Inner Christianity by Richard Smoley. Richard Smoley is an author who was introduced to me after talking to someone, talking to a group actually about reconciling the tradition that I grew up with, which is Christianity, to put it in a basic form without all the denominations and threads of it, and reconciling that with my esoteric um, comparative mythology, Gnostic tendencies that I've personally developed over the years since my 20s, my early 20s, um, which really first started with discovering a Rosicrucian fellowship book by Max Heindel, and then discussing Manly Hall's Secret Teaching of All Ages with a friend of mine. And I mean, ever since then, the world's just it's an endless discovery of new material. And uh, for the past 20 years, I've really been under the impression that I was doing something wrong in the eyes of Christianity by studying or believing or going into any of the esoteric material. And I was recommended Richard Smoley by someone in a group session that I was in, a group workshop, because I do go to the Seattle Theosophical Society. I'm a member of that and the Theosophical Society of America. And we had a workshop called Living in the Question. And without rambling on too much, it was a meditative way of asking important life questions, which is kind of what the workshop was about. Sort of like divination, I suppose, but it was really open ended. So instead of doing, say, an oracle, um, it was really much more academic. And the workshop was put on by somebody who was a PhD. I can't remember what her PhD was in, but she was also a long time Wiccan, and but she didn't really go into anything that would be considered woo woo. It was all very solid stuff with a hint of contemplative, a contemplative nature. And uh, she name dropped somebody, Eugene Genlin, who is kind of at the head of this movement called focusing. I won't go too much into that, but everybody in the workshop was supposed to come up with a question, and mine was having to do with reconciling Christianity with the esoteric traditions, basically, or say going to practice Buddhism or Vedanta, yogic practices. And there were a few stages that she kind of taught us. One was rephrasing the question so that it wasn't. It was like, in the beginning for me, it was so black and white. It was like, should I do this or should I do that? And then there was this rephrasing and developing of the question, like, how might I learn which path is right for me, or how might I draw from this path and this path to reach an understanding of what I truly believe. And so it really gets the questioner in touch with what's really going on inside, because a lot of times the frontal lobe consciousness, it's trying to grasp words, um, and unless you're an incredibly gifted speaker and you're used to really drawing out what's deep inside of you, it can be hard to really word what's really, say, on your heart. And it was a way of guiding yourself through these principles of sort of letting the question itself blossom from black and white to all these branches that really opened up what's truly going on deep down inside, at least for me, what was going on deep down and what questions I really wanted answered. And a lot of them I already had, which was really nice. But she did end the workshop with saying, these questions will just sort of be there in the ether, and they will give an answer to you without you even really needing to obsess over them. You don't need to wake up and think about these questions. You can if you want to, but that's wasn't really the point. And it was incredible. Like, my life, until it was a part 1 and part 2, and it was about a 3-week interlude. And in between those 3 weeks and onwards, I had so many things in my life that were popping up, giving me insight into this main question, which I guess isn't surprising, being that in the United States we do kind of grapple with that dichotomy of traditional Christianity and this sort of rebirth of an interest in occultism and esotericism. Western mysticism, Eastern mysticism has been around for a while. And so it's not surprising, but it did feel personal. It felt, I felt like I was getting, things were manifesting, things were appearing in my life, or maybe I was just paying more attention to things in my life that were so in tune with this question and gave me such peace and gave me answers that I had never considered before, or gave me new lines of questioning that I had never considered before. And for that, I'm really grateful. That does bring me to the part 2 workshop. There was a guy there who did attend both parts, now that I remember. And I didn't talk much to him in the first part, but on the second one, when we all went around in the circle, I think that's how we did it. I may have volunteered, I don't remember, but I did share with the group my question and some of the things that had arisen due to my question. And this gentleman recommended that I check Richard Smoley out. And Richard Smoley is a part of the Theosophical Society. He's the editor of their magazine that they put out, which I think is called Gnosis, if I'm remembering that right. Or no, it's called Quest. It's called Quest magazine. Now, he's the editor-in-chief. I haven't read much out of that magazine. I flipped through it, but what I did find is that he's on YouTube and he's given some, I guess you'd call them lectures at the Theosophical Society. He's been on, what is that channel? New Thinking Aloud. And he's just what seems to me a really down-to-earth guy. He doesn't seem to be carried away into too much of the ethereal or abstract. He's well studied. He studied at Harvard, I think, and one other prestigious school. I can't remember, but he's got, I think his master's is his degree in, I believe, religious studies or philosophy. He was a scholar of the Kabbalah for quite a while, and it seems to me that the period that he's in now is sort of a Gnostic Christianity, but even he's leery of the word Gnosticism, which he addresses in his book, The Forbidden Faith. Great book, by the way, if you're interested in Christian Gnosticism at all. Forbidden Faith by Richard Smoley is really good. But I am here to talk about Inner Christianity by Richard Smoley, and they do overlap quite a bit. I mean, these books are both addressing the history of Christianity, maybe not told by the mainstream church. And I would really recommend anyone who grew up with Jesus as a deity. Let's just say that as a relationship with a deity named Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and then was burned by the church, or went through a period of estrangement with the church for whatever reason. Maybe it was social opinions around them. I know for me that was sort of the case, is that people who I considered peers, who I could trust, really seemed to be pointing out the fact that, at least the church as it is now had a lot of problems, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of hypocrisy, and that sort of leaving that path behind and embracing science, embracing comparative religion, embracing an honest to goodness scholarly study of history was a lot wiser and more genuous, if that's the right word. And I tended to agree with that throughout my 20s and 30s. I do believe that cannabis use did play a part in my falling away from Christianity personally. I don't know if that's everyone's experience. In fact, I know it's not. I know not everybody has experimented with cannabis or psychedelics, but I do know a lot of people my age and around my age do fall into that, especially if they are doubting what they grew up with at all. And and I think that mild psychedelic, along with heavier psychedelics that I took, did play a part in seeing something outside of the framework that I was raised in. And anyways, to get back to Richard Smoley, I don't know what his history is with psychedelics. He doesn't really talk about that much, not his own personal use, anyways. But what he does talk about is a history of what Christian Gnosticism is, which it's a tough topic to just put in a capsule. Um, there were many different forms of Gnosticism during the time of Christianity, and I'm not sure who said this. I don't know if it was Smoley. I don't think it was. Who said Christian Gnosticism has the same claim as what we consider Orthodox Christianity. They both spring out of that same era. I mean, scholars can't find documents from like year zero, right, where Jesus was born, supposedly. We don't have documents documenting that. I think documents first started, the dating is at least the first couple hundred years AD. And I could be wrong there, but I think that's right. And the same with Gnosticism. And so polemics against Gnosticism are almost what defined Orthodox Christianity. Where, if you don't know what a polemic is, it's kind of the opposite of an apologetic text. So a polemic is like an Orthodox official of the church uh, who comes out and writes something against a heresy. And so that's actually the best evidence we have for a lot of the Gnosticism are these polemics. But I think scholars have found things to back it up. But polemics are, I think, a pretty accepted way of at least knowing that there was something generally in that area going on of what the polemic was about. And I'm not going to go into the different types of Gnosticism, but I am going to stop here because I got the low battery warning on my laptop, and it doesn't look like anyone's joined, but that's okay. I've had fun talking about this, and I will see how the sound went because it may be terrible. So if you do watch this, thank you. Hit the subscribe and the like button, and I will be making part 2 of this video so I can get back to Richard Smoley and inner Christianity. Thanks.